Alright, everybody, welcome to the B-side from the desk of knowledge at 7poundbag.com. I do want to thank you for joining me here, and my original intent was to go in and talk about how to make a good Fantastic Four movie, but to tell you the truth, it kind of got too long and I kind of kept backtracking too much. I didn't much like the way it turned out, so I kind of scrapped it and I'm starting it over this week. So what I want to do first is I want to kind of give a little background on my comic experience and kind of build up, and then next week we'll actually start talking about the Fantastic Four. Let me first talk about my comic experience. I can tell you without a shadow of a doubt the first comic book that I ever bought. It was West Coast Avengers number 7 from April of 1996. I was all 13. On the cover it has Hank Pym being torn apart by Ultron. Yes, the same Ultron that's in the Avengers movie. But pretty much I was collected almost until 1992 when I went to the Army, and almost all the money I made that didn't go on women went on comic books. Well, that Nintendo. I graduated more toward the Marvel universe over the DC universe just because I liked the way the heroes were. Back in those days, where there wasn't so much of them moving over back and forth among the management, you had a lot of, and of course, this for Image and all that good stuff. You had a different universes between the two. You had a certain set of characters over at Marvel. You had a certain set of characters over at DC among the majors. Now the minor ones, they kind of filtered back and forth depending on the writer, but the majors always had a specific set here. And just to kind of go into basically what I mean here, you look at the DC heroes. Their big major one is, of course, Superman. Superman has two major weaknesses. He's vulnerable to magic and he's vulnerable to kryptonite, neither of which is exactly in common supply even among the comic book world. It's not like you can go out and find kryptonite all over the place. And of course, I'll come back and talk about Superman at a future issue. But by and large, Superman has, he's vulnerable against magic, he's vulnerable against kryptonite, can do whatever he wants. He's faster than a speeding bullet, he can fly, he's invulnerable, he's got all this good stuff. And basically, he's as powerful as the writer needs him to be. At one time, he was even the most intelligent person to ever walk the planet. They kind of retconned that all the way down, or else Lex Luthor is basically another smart guy trying to take out a guy even smarter than he is, that has all these physical gifts. So they've kind of, they keep changing Superman's power level. They keep changing up what he can do. We won't get into the whole death of Superman and Superman red and blue, or becomes an electric monster and all this good stuff. But by and large, when you look at classic Superman, he's basically got everything going to him. He's this ultimate man type thing, with laser beams and X-ray eyes, super hearing, super this, super that, super the other thing. So, and then you go to Batman, who's a normal human, but with the biggest plot armor of any character in fiction. And anything that he wants to do, basically, he can figure out a way to do it because he's got unlimited resources and he's got basically unlimited intelligence. He's the one guy that can take on the whole Justice League, and he's the only one without any superpowers. But still, he's Batman. He's popular, we expect. And of course, anytime you want to read about Batman, Lord knows there's 50,000 things out there. The guy's got more books about him than Napoleon, it seems. And then we come to the Flash, fastest man alive. And again, classic Flash, he can just basically run as fast as, almost the speed of light, it seems. And he's got this cosmic treadmill that gives him now. And now he's got this million-mile punch, or whatever they call it, which has made him even more impressive. But, basically he runs fast. He can do all the good stuff that comes to it. And then, you've got Wonder Woman, who, to tell you the truth, I'm kind of stunned that they really haven't touched on her true origins as far as what she comes from. I mean, she's basically a golem. She's created from, sand. She's this mythic hero. And I'm really kind of surprised in this PC world they haven't bit the bullet and kind of made her what her origin actually is as far as her creator was concerned. And it would really be interesting if they ever actually did it. And if you really want to know about it, I'll let you go read about it. But it's hilarious. Just to think that if Warner Brothers really wanted to do it, they could, and they'd probably be applauded for it. Especially if they can do it with any kind of intelligence. Of course they won't, because they won't be able to sell I'm sure Batman and Superman will get into a fight over who actually falls in love with Wonder Woman, and she'll kind of waddle about between them two, so who knows. But basically, all your DC heroes are like that. And yes, I've skipped one of the major Justice League heroes because I'm going to come back to it. But they're all the greatest this, the best this, the ultimate this, the greatest, yeah, et cetera, and so forth. And they're all ultimate whatever. You want to run fast? Well, here's the Flash. He's the fastest of us all. You want to have super strength? Well, here's Superman. He's the strongest of us all. And then we flip over to the Marvel heroes. Well, the big Marvel hero, of course, has always been Spider-Man. Well, Spider-Man, and part of the reason why the Amazing Spider-Man movies failed and why the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies were better but still started to kind of tail off at the end, you look at his basic background. He is basically comic books at that time, up to not that long ago, target audience. He's kind of a nerdy kid. He's grows up in kind of a rough area, and basically what he's about is he wants to keep his head down, get through school, make good grades, go to college, and get the heck out of his neighborhood. Kind of lower middle class, upper lower class area, and that's what he wants to do. He's like a lot of people that grew up in the suburbs or in the inner city, like myself. You keep your head down, you don't get in trouble, you don't get your butt kicked by the bullies in school. You graduate, you go off and you make something of yourself. And that's basically what Spider-Man's able to, what he's all about. That's what he wants to do. He's avoiding Flash Thompson, et cetera, and so forth. And then one day he's bitten by a spider, and he all of a sudden has powers. He can now do something. He can stand up to the bullies. He can do what he wants. And one thing that I love about it is he does what everybody else would do. He goes on a bit of a, he makes money. He makes himself a minor famous. Becomes a wrestler, which we won't get into. But if I all of a sudden at the age of 17 or 16 was granted superpowers, I'd rob a bank. I mean, if I'm able to rip the bank vault doors off, I mean that's the first thing I'm doing. But he does things. And then part of his wanting to have all this fame and everything behind him, his uncle Ben dies as a result of it. As of him, the whole great power great responsibility motif. That's the whole thing about Spider-Man, and that's the problem with you have a lot of these Spider-Man movies. He does this whole wisecracking, etc., to kind of hide who he is, to kind of say, oh man, not all of us has been that way. Somebody says something to, oh, I wish I'd have come back and said something. Well, he's able to do that. He's a lot more quick-witted than he was back when he was just a quote-unquote nerd about school. And that's the whole built around Spider-Man. You go to the mutants. Well, the mutants is, in case you don't know it, it's basically Malcolm X versus Martin Luther King. Magneto versus Charles Xavier. I'm not going to tell you who's who, because if you don't know, then you've got a problem. And it's whose side is better, and to make these mutants out through the world, which is kind of amazing with the Spider-Man and the Avengers and all that. The mutants are the one people that have a problem with this. But it's the way it's written. It's why you almost have two worlds in the Marvel Universe. You've got the regular heroes and you've got the mutant world. And never the twain shall meet up until lately, but through the first 40, 50 years that worked for Marvel. But the mutants were always written as this dichotomy. And, and that's part of the reason why Magneto kind of slides over, and Charles Xavier kind of slides away, and he's Cyclops. It's got this whole dynamic and all this, that, and the other. And maybe I'll come back and do that, but I was never really into mutants. Like I said, I was always the other half of Marvel, so to speak. And then you have Iron Man. Iron Man's this big, huge, everybody knows Iron Man, basically the way he was built. But in the comics, he's also got this Achilles heel of this drinking problem. It kind of starts off in the beginning where he has this problem with the heart shrapnel, which in the comics, if you really read some of the early comics that I have, a lot of it ends with him crawling on the floor trying to get to a light socket to plug in his heart because it's going to die. And eventually, that's like every other issue. He ends up on the floor just trying to get to an electrical socket. And after a while, even the writers figured out, this is getting stupid. So they finally solve it, for the most part, which I love how a solar-powered battery pack just keeps running out of electricity just at the wrong time. But they finally kind of solved this, so they give him another problem. He's got a problem with his dad and the memory of his dad, so he starts drinking. And that begins the whole demon of the bottle stick. And that really is what carries Iron Man pretty much for almost a decade. I mean, it's really not solved up until issue 200 with the whole Obadiah Stane thing. Kind of starts about the 120s, where it really starts hitting downhill. It makes Jim Rhodes a lot more important character, the later on War Machine. But that is really where Iron Man comes. And the whole demon of the bottle sketch, unless they were able to get Robert Downey Jr. for like 7 movies, would never really, they'd never really be able to do it in the movies, but it would just be amazing. And it would really be hard to do because it's a B level story for so long while he's fighting other characters that you really couldn't do it in movies because, like I said, you'd have to have 7 Robert Downey movies to pull it off. But it's a really fascinating story, and it's where comics can really be done right. Because, like I said, it really treats alcoholism and a kiddie book, as my mom used to call them, in a real and true manner. But that's the way it was done. You have the Hulk. The madder he gets, the stronger he gets. Well, he's also got this Bruce Banner, who's the bookish type person that whenever he's able to take over, you've got problems because Hulk's not nearly as strong. Bruce Banner comes back. Well, now he's not nearly as interesting. So what do you do with a mindless monster? And that's part of the reason why they have such a problem. Why the Hulk books are so uneven. What do you do with this animalistic monster and forget about Bruce Banner? Well, Bruce Banner's an actual hero, and it's a really hard series to write, which is part of the reason why the movies don't ever really work. But the TV show did really well because they kind of marginalized the Hulk and concentrated on Bruce Banner. Whereas in the movie, they want to make everything all impressive about the Hulk, and they kind of marginalize Bruce. So it's a little harder to do, but it's possible. But again, you got to have good writers. And while the Hulk book is so uneven, if you really want to do a Hulk movie outside of the Avengers, I'd love to see a Joe Fixit movie, but that's neither here nor there. Now, if you'll notice, there's one common theme with all these Marvel heroes. They all have kind of a built-in Achilles heel. They all have a built-in weakness, and that's one thing you don't get in the the DC universe. Because, like I said, Superman's got a built-in weakness. They all do to a certain extent, but it's not nearly as common. I mean, Superman's not an alcoholic. Batman broods about his parents, but that's what drives him. That's not what becomes his character, uh, as much as it does Spider-Man. Wonder Woman's got all this power, but again, it's not like she has to go back to Femisol every 24 hours to recharge, except for Green Lantern. Green Lantern does have a built-in weakness, the color yellow, which is ignorant, but it's a whole spectrum, and yes, I know we've retconned that. But that's one reason why a lot of people think that Green Lantern actually fits better in the Marvel Universe than he does in the DC Universe, even though it's a magic power ring. Just because he's grounded in that, he's got a problem with the color yellow. He's also got a problem with cockiness, which is why he works so well with Green Arrow, which I would love to see that in a TV show, but we'll never see it just because the Arrow of the Arrow series that me and my daughter are watching, he's actually closer to the way Green Lantern thinks than the way Green Arrow thinks in the comics. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Just a funny little aside for those of you that watch the show. But part of the problem that you've got is, like I said, the Marvel heroes, they've all got these Achilles heels. They've all got something about this personality that's been stretched. And they're not pure heroes, unlike in the DC universe. It's like, what happens if Batman turns bad? Well, he kills everybody. And Superman goes bad. Well, he kills everybody. And the Flash goes bad. Well, you can go back in time and kill everybody, etc. and so forth. Superheroes in the Marvel universe, well, they've all got, if they all go bad, they've all got weaknesses that could be thrown out to them. I mean, how long would it take Batman to kill Iron Man around issue 200? I mean, he basically just throw him in a big old vat of Jack Daniels, and there you go. And if it was James Rhodey, there's a different thing because he goes insane because of his helmet, etc. and so forth. Well, again, it's part of the reason why so much of the DC heroes, their greatest enemies, are basically carbon copies of themselves. Green Lantern has Sinestro, Superman has Bizarro, Batman's got the Joker, which is a complete Freudian type thing. Wonder Woman, we go on and over with that. In the Marvel Universe, you don't really have that need to create a mirror person to make them bad. It's like Iron Man's got a lot of people that are in armor, but you don't really see an Iron Man versus Doctor Doom, even though they're both huge, rich, intelligent people with suits of armor, which is why whenever the 50th issue of Iron Man rolls around, 150, 250, etc., it's almost always, at least those 2 issues were Doctor Doom issues, and it was always interesting because it was something different, because Iron Man doesn't fight Doctor Doom that often, which makes it a special occasion, so to speak, for those of us that love the comic books. Now, that, as far as Marvel's concerned, kind of goes back to the Fantastic Four. Now, one thing that they don't really talk about as far as the Fantastic Four is concerned is they were never that popular a book. Yes, they're the first Marvel book, so they have some legacy there, which is probably why they haven't just been forgotten. but they do have a bit of a legacy about them because they were the first. They were the ones that were brought out. It's like a lot of people don't know that in the Marvel Universe, the first people to hit the moon was the Fantastic Four. That's why they were created, because they were the driving force between actually landing on the moon. And yes, Fantastic Four got there before Neil Armstrong did. Don't get me started. But they were never that popular a book. They were canceled 3 times and finally brought back due to editorial changes before some writer says, well, I'll take a shot at them. And they were kind of kept out of New York. They did a lot of their stuff in space, which is why you got the Skrulls, the Kree, all that good stuff. They did a lot of stuff in the negative zone. They were kind of kept out of New York. It's like, the Daredevil has Hell's Kitchen, Spider-Man has a little area in New York City, the Avengers kind of handled everything else. It's like everybody's got their own area of New York City. Fantastic Four just kind of did everything off-world. It's like, oh, you got a problem in Saturn? Well, let's send the Fantastic Four out there. They've got their own space rocket. Whereas the Avengers basically didn't even have supersonic jets, for a couple of decades. They just all were able to show up there. And it's just, they didn't, they were kind of there with the Marvel Universe, but they were also kind of doing other stuff. They were almost like a third section of Marvel. But they were able to bring in a lot of different things. Like I said, they brought in the Inhumans. They did a lot of stuff on the moon. Black Panther kind of started there before he shifted to the Avengers full steam ahead. So it was always different things with the Fantastic Four going along. They finally did join the Avengers in issue 300, but they didn't really stick around very long. And I never really I collected them for a short time, but never a whole lot. Kind of got, for some reason, when I started collecting them, it was around the whole Franklin Richards type thing where he started discovering his powers. And that just kind of got a bit annoying to me. And I kind of, like I said, got it for a couple of issues, dropped it, and never really looked back. It's just one of those things where they didn't really interest me. But the mythology behind them, and I was a big Thing fan. Like I said, I was a West Coast Avengers guy. Thing hung around with them. You had Thing with the Marvel 2-in-1. And I have almost the complete set of the Thing, his little 36-issue run. I liked the Thing, I just didn't like the rest of them. Again, I'm an Iron Man type guy, and I kind of got tired of everybody throwing Reed Richards up as the smartest guy in the world. In my opinion, I'm a Tony Stark guy. I always love everybody says, well, I've got Stark level intelligence. Oh, really? Why didn't you create an Iron Man suit back in the 1960s? Anyway, that's neither here nor there. But the mythology of the Fantastic Four movies is, in my opinion, why they have such a problem pulling in a wide audience, and your biggest problem that you've got in Fantastic Four movies. And I'm going to kind of get into the Fantastic Four a little bit next week, because like I said, that's where I'm going to start actually breaking them down a little further. But one thing you have to keep in mind whenever you're looking at Marvel Comics versus DC Comics, and part of the problem the DC Universe has, is there is a difference between the two universes. There is a difference between the two of them, how they affect each other, how they interact with each other. And that's kind of part of the problem that, and I've said this constantly, part of the problem with the DC cinematic universe. The most powerful character that you have, Superman, is also the least interesting character that you have. The least powerful character that you have, which would be Batman, is your most popular character. So you've got to make those two fit together. You've got to find some way to make them work. And it's kind of the problem that you have with Batman and Superman. Theoretically, and it's like you see this, you got a parody type thing. Superman just laser beams Batman in the face and takes the hour that Lex Luthor gives him and goes find his mom. All right, all done. You can kind of find that all over the place. Whereas with the Avengers, they've all got similar power skills, or they all have a certain skill set. It's like Captain America, yes, he's this big, huge, strong human, but he's not about to go out there and try to take Thor down. He's not about to take the Hulk down. He's going to kind of organize everybody else and go let Iron Man go do it, or go let Thor go do it, or let Quasar go do it, or Hercules, or any other Avenger go out there and do it, but he's going to organize everything behind the scenes. It's a little bit different, whereas Batman's going to go grab a special rock, or a special suit, or a special this, or special that, and go handle it himself. There's a bit of a, Captain America, for lack of a better term, knows his place. He knows his power level. It's kind of like whenever Thanos comes out, eventually Captain America's like, okay, he's beating everybody else, I'm going to take a shot at him. And Cap actually stands toe-to-toe with Thanos, believe it or not. Which would be hilarious if they actually did it in the movie, but still. And I've got thoughts on the Infinity War, but anyway, maybe I'll do that as a one-shot. But you have to look at everybody kind of has their own power level in the Marvel Universe. And they've even broken down the mutants into 4 different levels and what they can actually do. And it kind of, in DC Universe, everybody's overpowered, everybody's superpowered. Marvel Universe, not so much, and a lot of what they have, the more powerful they are, the bigger their weakness is. It's like Captain America. Well, he's a maximum human. What's his weakness? Well, he's stuck in the 1940s. He's still not used to this whole thing, which now he's been awakened for 50 years, so it's not like it's as big a gap as it was back when I read it, when Mark Greenwald was writing the comic. It was a larger weakness than it is now. He's just a human, or excuse me, maximum human, but he still has that regular weakness. What's Iron Man's biggest weakness? Well, he's a much bigger power level. His weakness is alcoholism, which unfortunately, as we know in the real world, drags everybody down. What's Thor's biggest weakness? Well, he's a Norse god, so he's got this massive power level. What's his weakness? Well, all the other gods for one thing. He's also got this human woman that he's in love with. He's also got problems with his brother. He's got problems with his dad, etc., and so forth. So, his problems match his power level. And it's really hard to do that in the DC Universe because what's Superman's weakness? Oh, look, here's a rock that we found on the ground. It's a meteorite. Yay. Kind of hard to do something about that. So there's, like I said, you have differences between the two universes. So next week, hopefully, I'll come back and I'll actually start digging into the Fantastic Four. But I did want to kind of break down the difference between the two comics, give you a little background on myself. And again, I do want to, please subscribe, hit the good bell stuff, and all that other stuff. I will see you back in 4 days with the A side. If you have any suggestions there, by all means, tweet me. Make sure you use the hashtag Ask7Pound. By all means, hit the website because we've got all kinds of good fun stuff. And thank you for joining me. This is David signing off. See you Friday.